And tomorrow in Carolina, it's Tennessee and NC State in the beautiful city of Charlotte. Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling, RKW rolls on with a very good friend, Brent Hubbs of VolQuest and On 3. Got a big game to preview this weekend. What's up, Brent? How are you?
I'm doing great. Hope you guys are. Time to play a little football.
That is right.
Hey, no offense to the mocks, but we're going to play real football.
There we go.
Well, Brent, I have to say, this is our first Friday of the football season where we've got you at 7:20 and Mike Keith at 8:20. So we are all the way back, Brent. We are having a good time this morning.
Okay, I have a question for the voice of the Tennessee Titans, if you could pass this one along.
Absolutely.
Taking out my notepad.
Why do we have a rule that says the assistant coach can't call a timeout, but if he does call a timeout, it's no big deal, he just broke the rule? What's the point of the rule, Ramon? What's the point of the rule in your league, Ramon?
We'll pass it along.
To me.
Hey, I'm going to pass that along to the voice of the Tennessee Titans. I defer all questions.
He'll know an answer. If anybody will know an answer, he'll know an answer.
He will promise you that. You doggone right. Look at Hubbs out here, man.
I love it.
Starting stuff. I love it.
Absolutely.
Just curious.
Absolutely.
If it's against the rules, I mean, there should be punishment for violating the rule.
That's very true now. That's very true.
I don't know.
Listen, I don't know.
Brent, as Tennessee does prepare for NC State, the Nico Iamaleava hype has been something this week, and he earned a lot of it with the way he played, to be fair, last week. What impressed you the most with his Week 1 performance, and what, if anything, was significant about the way that he played?
Middle of the field accuracy. I mean, the throw to Chris Brazzell in the small window is the play that everybody's talking about, from Aaron Murray to other former players and former coaches around the country are talking about that. But I think in general, just the middle of the field, because it was such a vast wasteland for Tennessee last year. They just didn't get anything done in the middle of the field, particularly 10 yards and beyond, where the ball traveled 10 yards in the air. And this offense is a challenge because it's 53 yards that you have to defend side to side. If you can use the middle part of that 53, it's going to be really challenging, I think, for secondaries to figure out, do I roll coverage? What can I do? Because now I'm having to defend a part of the field that last year I was sort of hoping they would throw the ball there. And if he can do that, I'm not saying throw it into a tight window every play, but if he can consistently make some things happen in the middle of the field, I think this offense got a chance to be pretty doggone dynamic.
Brent, defensively, Dave Doran is an excellent football coach. The defensive staff that they have there is pretty good. How will this defense, though, replacing a lot of guys from last season, try to challenge and try to disrupt the timing of this Tennessee offense?
Well, I mean, are they going to play press man across the board and blitz and try to out-muscle Tennessee and be physical with Tennessee's wide receivers? Are they going to try to mix coverages? I mean, what are they going to do in the back end, I think, is really interesting. They love to blitz. They love to be aggressive out of that 3-3-5 look, coming from a lot of different places, trying to confuse the quarterback. If Tennessee can read it, and if they can win on the perimeter with a receiving core that was pretty impressive and that looks really good in the preseason and certainly on paper, then I think it could be a tough day. Here's the other thing, too, that I wonder about is Tennessee's tempo and pace. NC State has said all week long, hey, we practice it, and we've practiced, and we feel comfortable with it. It's one thing to practice it. It's another thing to play it. And Tennessee went super fast out of the gate last week. Now, can you be that fast on the road? Can they play that quickly and with that kind of pace? If they can, then it may wear out an NC State defense that's not very deep. They played 19 guys last week against Western Carolina, which is not a huge number. And Tennessee played really, really fast. So we'll see. Defensive coordinator Tony Gibson has spoken for NC State, has talked all week about if you don't communicate, it's going to get ugly fast. We'll see how well they communicate against Tennessee's tempo tomorrow night.
Well, I was just wondering if you was going to address the question that was given.
Well, we may or may not have an answer for you, Brent Hubbs, already from Mike K. in Franklin, who writes in. We have Grant R. in Blount County. Now we have Mike K., who says, here is your answer. Stick to college, Zippy, Mike Keith says.
Wow.
I love it.
Way to go.
Hey, listen. Having worked for him for a few years, when I get called Zippy, that means you've done something really well.
That's great.
That is hilarious.
Hey, listen.
I don't get called Zippy very often, but when I do, I know I've hit something.
There it is, right there, man. They stick to college. Zippy. There
I love
it is. Love that. By Michael K. in Franklin. You
That's
say,
right.
Will?
That's right. 100%.
Michael K. in Franklin. Brent Hubbs with us this morning.
We're like Dabo Sweeney. We don't take calls. We're just taking text submissions.
Absolutely, man. Speaking of that, right there, man. We're going into Charlotte this weekend, Hubbs. When you look at recruiting done so far, before we talk more about the game, what does it say about Tennessee winning in Charlotte if given the opportunity this weekend for recruiting? And of course, as much as I want to knock Clemson, I will. So can we have a good weekend there?
Well, I mean, certainly, I think that when you look at Tennessee, and Josh Heupel referenced this on Ball Calls Wednesday night, and kudos to him for doing a history lesson. When Tennessee's at their best, North Carolina is a mainstay on the roster. I'm not saying it dominates the roster, but there is a North Carolina flair to what Tennessee's roster looks like. You know, when you talk about the Carl Pickens of the world and the Heath Schulers and Jay Grahams and Montario Hardesties and, Hendon Hooker. I mean, when North Carolina is a factor and Tennessee's a factor in North Carolina, Tennessee's generally at their best. And this staff has done a terrific job of getting back involved in North Carolina because there's some previous coaches here who didn't believe North Carolina was an area you should recruit, and they didn't recruit it very hard. This staff has recruited North Carolina very hard. Charlotte's a great place for football. Obviously, David Sanders is from there. He's got two teammates next year that are going to be, top 100 players that Tennessee is going to try to recruit. You've got several other recruits over in the North Carolina area that Tennessee is going to be heavily involved in and try to recruit and be a part of, which is really good when you talk about Brody Keith and Elijah Littlejohn, two players over there that Tennessee will certainly be about as well. So I think North Carolina is really, really important. Now, as for Clemson, one specific player to keep an eye on is Amari Adams that Rodney Garner's got a really good relationship with, an interior defensive lineman. That I think there's been some dialogue there. Now, he's committed to Clemson, which under the Dabo rules means you can't take a visit anywhere. But I don't know how that rule is going to work if Clemson doesn't find some offense and they struggle against some other teams out there. So that's one to keep an eye on, not for now, but maybe later on this fall to see what happens with Amari Adams. So, North Carolina's good to Tennessee. It needs to continue to be good to Tennessee, and Amari Adams is a Clemson commit that you might keep an eye on here in the next 6 or 8 weeks.
I just looked up Amari Adams' primary recruiter. I played with that guy, Nick Easton, former Titan, too, by the way. So tell Nick to back the heck off, okay? In that two Hubs is this side of it, man. Look, we brought this up at the end of the last break. Tennessee's playing in a primetime slot on ESPN, and I know it's the connection that the SEC has on ESPN now, but you're rivaling other teams that could be in that slot. Michigan and Texas could have been in that slot. With that being said, how much pressure's on the Vols, on Coach Heupel, and on players to perform on the main stage? Because it's been a while, Hubs, that Tennessee's been in this and actually got two good shoes to dance with.
Well, I mean, I don't think that there's any more pressure because of what your time slot is on television. I think that, you're expected to go win. Everybody's predicted you to go win. You're now a double-digit favorite. I think that's where the lines move to. You got to go out and play, and you got to go out and continue to grow and get better. And that's not coach speak answer, but that's the reality of it. I mean, you played a half of football last week, and people are gaga over you. And I understand why, because it was a fun, impressive half. And you played 30 defensive players in the first quarter. I mean, Rodney Garner rotated 4 guys on the third snap of the game. The third snap, Ramon. I don't know if he was mad, but he just said, hey, snap 3 of the game for the defense, shift change. We got 4 new ones coming in. So, James Pierce played 10 snaps. The most snaps played by a defensive lineman were 20 snaps. So that was a scrimmage. And that's all that was. Tennessee did some good things in it. Now you got to go and grow and move forward and play better football this week, whether you're at noon or you're at 8 o'clock or 7:45. Now, when you're at 7:45, more eyes are on you, right? And there's going to be a lot of national people wanting to see the Nico show. So does he feel any more pressure? How does he handle the week of hype and the buzz that he's got? Those are all things that you're looking at this week. But I don't know that Tennessee internally feels any more pressure because it's a night game, but there'll be more eyeballs on you because it's a night game, and it's the primetime game on ABC for sure.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest joining us like he does every Friday at this time. So a lot of newness in that tight end room this season, and we saw a little bit of them on the field in the opener. What did you think about that group, specifically Ethan Davis, and what you saw to him?
I thought they played well. That's a unique transition for Holden Stays, who came out of a huddle-up offense at Notre Dame. And I think Holden was average in the spring. I don't think he was as physical as they needed him to be. And I don't think he played very fast trying to adjust to the offense. But he clearly had a really good summer and has adapted to it well. And I think Miles Kitselman had to learn how to play in space. He was essentially an extra offensive tackle at Alabama. And now you're motioning him out. You're lining him up out wide and motions back into the play. And, I thought they were solid. Were they perfect? Kitselman missed a couple blocks that, he needs to make, and there's plenty of things to grow from with that group. But I think that was a solid day. I don't know that most fans, now Mike and Franklin will know this because he's a football genius, but what they do with the tight end position in this offense is really important. It's really significant. That's why they don't play a ton of 4 and 5 wide sets, because they use the tight end to manipulate numbers in the box for the run game with what they do with motions and different things like that. That's why there's always at least a tight end on the field. Like last week, they took the tight end and from the H-back position, they made him the lead back and turned it into the I formation. Yeah. Then they motioned him out to get the linebacker to bump out, and suddenly you got a light box, and now we're going to run zone read back behind him, because they've cleared somebody out of the box. That's the manipulation of this offense. That's the personnel they manipulated defense with the most, is the tight end spot. Replacing that room was a must because you had graduation, but it was also a challenge. And I think those 3 guys, Ethan Davis, Holden Stays, and Miles Kitselman, did a terrific job this summer understanding they got to be ready out of the gate, and they were ready. Now, their challenge this week, Ramon, is very different because you got 5, you have your 5 linemen, but they're going to, NC State's going to bring corner blitz, nickel blitz. They're going to bring linebackers from different places. Your communication up there better be really good, and you're going to have to max protect some, and the tight ends are going to have to read twist stunts and all the games that NC State plays and really communicate well up front.
When it comes to NC State in terms of their skill positions, they got a guy by the name of Casey Concepcion. And this guy clearly knows how to play some football. He's going to be a little bit of a thorn in their sides, especially for those linebackers. How do they defend against a guy like this?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question is how multiple do you think you can be in the back end of your defense with a bunch of new guys? Can you disguise some different looks? Can you play a bunch of different things? Or do you have to keep it pretty simple so you can play really fast? NC State's going to move Concepcion around. He'll be out wide. He'll be in the backfield. He'll be as an H-back, a slot back. He'll be all over the place. So you have to ID him pre-snap and know where he's at. And then what are you going to do? Are you going to man him up? Are you going to try to man him up with Boo Carter some as a slot guy? Are you going to try to get really physical with him, which is hard to do because you can't really press a slot guy? How they elect to play him is going to be pretty fascinating. He is going to get touches. If anybody thinks they're going to shut him out, they're crazy, because they're not. Yeah. What you have to do is you have to limit his yards after catch. Okay? He can't catch the 5-yard out and turn it into a 15-yard gain. I mean, you've got to rally to the ball. You got to get him on the ground. You got to limit his damage after his touches. And then you got to defend him in the middle of the field because they love to shallow drag him across the middle and try to get him on the run and make some plays that way. So he's a handful. He is certainly Tennessee's biggest challenge going into this game because that's where Grayson McCall's most comfortable right now with his receiving core. And the guy can obviously play because he was the rookie of the year in the ACC. He had right at, I think, just over 800 receiving yards last year. And NC State had really bad quarterback play. They were a really bad offense. He was legitimately a one-man show for them last year. The guy can play football against anybody he lines up against.
VolQuest, the Brent Hubbs with us this morning on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brent, question on a couple of young guys. I know Ricky Gibson working his way back from injury. What is his status as far as you know it for tomorrow? And Mike Matthews, a guy we did not see among the 94 against Chattanooga. Just how far deep is he in this depth chart with his health at this point of the process as well?
Well, I don't think he's buried from a talent standpoint. It's just he's got to get healthy and stay healthy with that hamstring. I don't know that he'll do a whole lot this week. I think that, I think you're looking at, I could see Mike Matthews coming out party being next week against Kent State, and then you're really looking at what your receiver rotation looks like with him moving forward. Now, we'll see. I mean, he may play some this week, but I've kind of got him earmarked for next week as the guy we're talking about heading into Oklahoma as kind of a breakout performer against, the Golden Flashes. Ricky Gibson is said to be healthy. He's practiced all week. We'll keep a close eye on him in warm-ups. If he can go, he starts. He is the starter opposite Jermond McCoy, and if he's healthy enough to dress and play, then he's healthy enough to start the football game. And I think that's what Tennessee believes is going to happen on Saturday night.
Man, I saw the importance of Cooper Mays this past weekend. He snapped the ball, pulled around the guard, and lined up a linebacker for a big run off the left side. That's what Coach Heupel and his staff and Coach Ellerby was speaking about by having Cooper Mays, correct?
Yeah, listen, the center position is important in any college football offense or any offense in general. I think in this offense, it's really important because there's so much IDing. You set the pace for the offense. The quarterback can want to go fast, but you have to set the pace to get to the ball and get everybody lined up and communicated and then be more athletic. I mean, Cooper's, knock on wood, is as healthy as he's ever been. He's stronger than he's ever been. And, they played fast right out of the gate, and I thought they moved pretty well on the offensive line. Now, again, three-man fronts are really interesting in this offense because there are times where it's given this offense some troubles. Now, what Missouri did a year ago with their 3-4 defense is different than what NC State plays with the 3-3-5. But Missouri's overhang linebacker and some stuff they did schematically gave Tennessee some problems. And then Joe Milton didn't play very well. How does this offensive line communicate odd fronts? How do they ID where people are coming from? Can they get to that second level and get the linebacker blocked the way they need to? Because it's different than it is when you're playing a four-man front. So this is a game where I think Cooper Mays' experience shows up even more because he's seen all of this before, and he can communicate it to Andre Kuric at the guard position, who hasn't seen a lot of it. And they can get it communicated to Lance Hurd, who's still adapting to this offense and all that they're doing there. So he is a valuable piece to this offense, which is why it was such a big deal when he elected to come back.
Brent Hubbs of VolQuest, our guest Fridays here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will at 7:20. We look forward to hearing what Mike K. in Franklin has to say to Brent H. in Knoxville coming up in just under an hour.
Have you checked your phone? Have you looked at your phone, Hubbs?
Oh, no. I'm not looking at my phone yet.
He says, no, sir.
I spent a long time getting early morning messages from that guy.
Well, odds have been set, is all I'm saying, okay? Odds and betting lines have been set already, okay, Hubbs?
Listen, I'm going to lose this one. I'm okay with that. I mean, here's the thing about Mike. Mike is a lot wittier than anybody wants to give him credit for. And when it's you and the boys, you better be able to have some thick skin, because if you go back at him, it's game on, because he loves it.
Heads on swivels.
And in good humor. But it is on a whole different level when the give and take starts getting going with Mike Keith. So I got nothing but love for him this morning, Ramon. Nothing but
love it.
I'm going to skip my way on out of here. Have a great weekend, all right?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Brent. There's Brent Hubbs. Bringing it every time.
Just
on and off the
picturing
field.
that through the bean field.